Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be talking about a bunch of new Pokemon TCG card reveals, including the Cynthia's Pokemon and the Arven's Pokemon, and a few other cards from the new expansion, the Japanese expansion, Heatwave Arena. And I've covered the Cynthia's Pokemon some on the channel. I covered them within the podcast with Uncommon Fossil, but I wanted to cover them on my own as well, and offer some more of my thoughts on these cards, and also, of course, the other new cards. To be honest, the other new cards aren't super spectacular, shall I say. The Arven's cards look, there's some stuff to talk about with them, but they don't look super strong. The Cynthia's Pokemon, though, do. I think the Cynthia's Pokemon are good. I've heard some people say they're broken, and I don't think they're broken. I've heard, the same thing said about pretty much all the trainers Pokemon, and we'll get into that. But first off, we have the Cynthia's Pokemon here. These are all Cynthia's Pokemon. Oh, and they're in Heatwave Arena, which is the second, I believe, main set in Japan. I don't exactly know how sets in Japan work. It might be a mini set. They're kind of similar, but regardless, it's the second main set internationally. Heatwave Arena is going to be lumped into the set. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. It might be like Destined Rivals or something. It's the second main set of the year, but it will feature Cynthia's. So we see Heatwave Arena featuring Cynthia's Pokemon, Ethan's Pokemon, Arven's Pokemon, and also Misty's Pokemon, I believe, are in this set. And then those will be in the set, plus the Stevens Pokemon and Marnie's Pokemon from the Stevens and Marnie's decks. And in those decks, I believe we've seen all the cards in that and kind of have an idea of what's coming from them. We might see more of these other trainers Pokemon, though, if I had to guess. I'm not 100% sure, but we certainly could. And then we're going to see Team Rocket or Rocket's Pokemon, including Rocket's Mewtwo EX. So that'll be later. That's from the Glory of Team Rocket, which is, I think that one's the mini set in Japan. Regardless, those two sets plus this deck are going to make up the set. It'll be like, I'd say, a bigger set versus the set Battle Partners, which is, a Japanese set. And this set's going to make up the bulk of our first main expansion of the year, first expansion of the new block, Journey Together. So Battle Partners / Journey Together just has 4 Pokemon versus the next one has a lot more for trainers with trainers Pokemon versus 7 in the next set. Anyways, that doesn't really matter right now. It's going to be a month before we can play with Journey Together, and in Japan, I think a month before these cards come out, and then for us getting these cards, it's going to be a few months down the road, so we can speculate about how good we think these cards are going to be, but we can't play them officially yet. But we have the Cynthia's Roserade here, which says your Cynthia's Pokemon do 30 more damage to your points active Pokemon. This is going to be an ability that stacks, unlike Hop's Snorlax EX. We're going to start to notice some overlap between the different trainers Pokemon here, and then it's a stage 1. The basic is not interesting. Again, it is Cynthia's Roserade as opposed to just Roserade. It evolves from Cynthia's Roselia as opposed to a regular Roselia. That doesn't really matter for this card, or I don't think really the Cynthia's Pokemon in general, but it does matter for some trainers, so it is something to keep in mind. Then we have Cynthia's Gibble, which isn't really anything good, but then that evolves into Cynthia's Gabite, which is good here. It is a stage 1, of course, is going to evolve into Cynthia's Garchomp EX as well, and stage 1 Pokemon are seeing like a ton of play that stage 1 middle evolutions to stage 2s in pretty much every deck, because we see Badoo floating around as a solid Pokemon, not like broken, but it's certainly there, and there's some reduced consistency in a slightly slower format post rotation. I think it's being exaggerated a little bit. It is slower. It's not like in like lower power level, because obviously we are losing cards, but it's not something that's like completely it's not going to completely change the feel of every game or anything like that. But regardless, you do have room to put in stage 1. So you will be playing a bunch of this regardless of whether or not you really want to rely on its ability. But it is good, allowing you to search for Cynthia's Pokemon every turn. This is nice. Ultimately, you'll have the turn, turn 2 presumably, which, and this is searchable with Buddy Buddy Poffin, the Cynthia's Gibble, as well as the Cynthia's Roselia, which is nice, and Cynthia's Spiritomb as well, which is another basic, it's an attacking option. It's not like super important, I don't think, but it's nice, and so you can get your deck going pretty consistently with this ability to, power you up. Turn 2, you have the Cynthia's Gabite. You can get a probably you want to Cynthia's Garchomp EX, it's your attacker, so you'll Rare Candy that. And then you can get a bunch of Roserades, and then after that, the ability is not super strong, I don't think. And there's no need to have like two of these in play, really. I think just one should probably be fine after that turn. Getting two in play early on could be nice. It's a solid ability. And you do kind of want to flood your board with Roserades, Cynthia's Roserades, and obviously Cynthia's Roselias to get there. And then same thing with the Garchomp line. You don't need to absolutely flood your board, but if you've played with, I guess if you played with Feraligatr in Standard, or I guess like the post-rotation list, I've talked about that deck some, you don't have a ton of, you don't have any rare candies, so you kind of need to have a bunch of Totodiles and Crocodiles and Feraligatrs evolving up at the same time, which is something you could do, and Cynthia's Gabite does help with that some. However, this ability is good, but it's not absolutely insane. I have heard some people say it's like, I thought it was like good when I saw it. I still think it's good, but it's not broken. Cynthia's Garchomp EX, though, is the main Pokemon to focus on here, though the other stuff really does feed into it. Corkscrew Dive is your first attack here for one fighting. This is a fighting Pokemon, which is much better than being a dragon Pokemon. Obviously, we've seen Garchomp's dragon type, but this being, and by the way, there's a Garchomp in Standard. It will be rotating, though. Oh, that doesn't matter. I was, I keep thinking, this is not Gabite. This is Cynthia's Gabite. So, but we see plenty of Dragon Garchomps. That's bad for Lily's Clefairy EX. Going to get caught in the crossfire between things like that. Really, just various counters to Dragapult EX. But you don't need to be worried about that here. You're a Grass Week, which it's not absolutely amazing, but it's okay. And Corkscrew Drive is 100, and then Draw Till 6 in hand. Draw Till 6 in hand is not like super useful. It's nice, but it's not insane. And then you do 260 for 2 fighting once, and then you discard all energy from this Pokemon. It is only 2 energies though, though not really a great way to get extra energies on this Pokemon to use Dragon Blaster back to back. So you'll be using Corkscrew Dive, and then you'll also be using Glory Cheer to boost your damage from Corkscrew Dive and Dragon Blaster. Dragon Blaster can pretty easily be boosted all the way up to 320, which is like a pretty good break point. Charizard EX has 330, and so does Cynthia's Garchomp EX and some other cards as well. But Cynthia's Garchomp EX actually probably has more than that, because you're going to put on the tool Cynthia's Power Weight, which gives you 70 extra HP. If this was 70 extra HP on any Pokemon, it would be like broken. But it's not. I've heard people say this card's also like broken. It's good. It has to do with Cynthia's Spiritomb as well, which does 10 damage for each damage counter on your benched Cynthia's Pokemon. It's also not affected by weakness, which I feel like doesn't really matter. The metagame post rotation is like, it's a lot of dragon. I can't really think of any Pokemon that are Psychic weak, or no, that are Darkness weak, which are Psychic Pokemon outside of like Gardevoir EX, which is, it's played. It's not some like weird rogue deck post rotation or anything like that, but Oh, and then also Slowking. That doesn't really matter. It's low HP, but the weakness thing, I don't actually know why it's here, but it is. So you're going to be able to do theoretically absurd damage if your opponent, like if your opponent hits into your Cynthia's Garchomp EX, it doesn't one-shot it, which it's hard to do. And then you'll be able to retreat for free into Cynthia's Spiritomb. I don't know how much this is supposed to be like a main part of the deck. You can boost the damage again with Cynthia's Roserade on Spiritomb as well, which is like cool. Ultimately, I think this is solid. With Corkscrew Dive, you can get, we'll say 2 Roserades, Cynthia's Roserade. I feel like that is pretty fair, and then you're hitting 160, which is not one-shotting any 2 prizes at all. Well, no, it's one-shotting Pheasantipede EX, which is actually better than one-shotting Squawkabilly EX, which you don't do. Despite doing 160, you need a third Roserade because of resistance there. In fact, to one-shot Pheasantipede EX, you'd only actually need 1 Roserade, so some kind of weird stuff going on here due to its typing. But anyways, this is definitely solid. It's a solid attacker. The extra draw does smooth out your consistency, kind of like how Cynthia's Gabite smooths out your consistency. So I think the deck's solid. I've heard some people say it's absolutely insane. I don't think so. I think it's fine. I think it's somewhere like as a mediocre trainers Pokemon, like good. I expect it to be, I'd say like within the top 20 of the metagame. Probably I expect to be top 10 once it like immediately comes out. I like Stevens more than I was a big fan of Stevens Pokemon. They're really tanky. Cynthia's Garchomp is also tanky. Essentially, I mean, literally 400 HP. But the Stevens Metagross EX is actually more tanky realistically, because it has 340 HP, then can take 60 less pretty consistently. So at that point, then you're if you don't know, 60 extra is essentially like 400 HP. But if you get hit into twice, you add that 60 extra twice. So if you get hit into a lot of times, you'll have essentially absurd, not like actually infinite HP. I guess if your opponent's hitting you for 60 every turn, reduced to 0 every turn, you have infinite HP. But the Cynthia's or no, Steven's Metagross EX is way tankier. So if you're looking for a tanky deck at all, including trainers Pokemon, that is where I'd go. And it's like solid damage, but I think Hopsashian EX is like the damage one. So Cynthia's Garchomp EX, I think, will find a role within the game, but it's not something that really excels massively at one thing either. And it's kind of setup based. Again, not super hard. Cynthia's Bite will smooth that out, and you can buddy pop him, but it's still not 100% perfect either. Next card we have here is Rotom from this set. This is a basic Pokemon, and it has 2 attacks. It's a lightning basic. I mean, you can see its stats here: 60 HP, 1 retreat, fighting, weakness, all that good stuff. And your attack here, Astonish, says for 1 lightning to 20, choose a random card from your opponent's hand, they reveal it, and then shuffle it into their deck. That's not very good, but whatever. The better attack here is Gadget Show, or the more interesting one. And this is going to do 30 damage for each tool attached to all your Pokemon. There's a lot of stuff actually to unpack with this card. So Rotom is, and actually Rotom, I didn't realize how much it like has tool-based cards. They're like all over the place. This I'm trying to think of. So there's the Rotoms which need tools in the discard, and then Rotom V and V Star's attack is like a tool-based attack, which I bet some of you have played with this card a lot and don't even know what its attack does, but it does that. It's kind of similar. But then, and that's why it's lost in as well. It lost its tools from the discard. But regardless, this is a card that is weird because it's 2 colorless. We are losing double turbo energy. Not that that's, I mean, it's not ideal for this card. I think it can get by using whatever. There are lots of ways to do this. Probably the best one's EXP Share. EXP Share is a good tool. I think it's super underrated. I talked about it in Feraligatr. Or I believe I talked about it in the Feraligatr video. I do have an EXP Share on my list, and I'd highly recommend you have it. If you don't, I think it's bad. I think you really, or I think it's an issue if you don't have it. I think it's just super good. So that is something you should be playing here. I think you could like add damage boosting tools, but they're okay. And HP boosting tools. I mean, they add HP, but probably not a meaningful amount. I mean, you only have 60 HP, so yeah, I'd say EXP Share is a way to look, and then you have Electric Generator as well. However, and this same thing applied to Rotom V, or I guess still applies if you're playing in Standard. I was gonna look for Rotom V attacking list, but I don't think I could ever find that in this database. But Rotom V is you need a bunch of tools, and then you could play Electric Generator. And Uncommon Fossil actually plays a lot of, or really likes Rotom V as an attacker, not because it's good, but because it's funny. And this is really awkward, where you need a lot of tools, and you also need a lot of energy to be able to obviously power up your Pokemon with Electric Generator. But regardless, this damage output also gets really messy. So there's a Pokemon like this. I think it's Pachirisu. And this is actually this is actually the same attack, okay, as Pachirisu, 30 for each tool attached to all your Pokemon. Pachirisu is not good. I think, this card could be good. Probably won't be. I would not be shocked if we see some type of double energy in the future. I'd actually be shocked if we never see a double energy style card that could work with Rotom. And then this card could be used as a 1 energy attacker. And then Pachirisu you'd pair with... Oh, here's a list. You pair it with Honchkrow V. Honchkrow V can have 4 tools because, obviously if you just have 6 tools and play 1 on each Pokemon, that's not that much. It's 180. You can technically have 9 Pokemon with Area 0 Underdepths now. So you're going to be hitting 270, which is solid. But the idea is to use Pokemon that can have multiple tools. I think there's something that can have two tools. I don't remember, though. The one that I remember which is the one you'd want to use, is Revavroom. And actually, if we look at this other list, it plays Bibarel. Bibarel is rotating. So Revavroom, the regular Revavroom is not. Revavroom EX can have 4 tools on it. It's just one retreat and like high HP, which is kind of surprising to me. But anyways, it can have 4 tools. It's a pretty bad Pokemon to be honest, but it can have a bunch of tools on it, and then you can use the Rev Room engine. You got like a lot of really weird stuff going on here. I don't think it ends up like forming. I mean, I know it's not going to form like a good competitive deck. I don't know if it could form something that's like a solid, fun deck. It might be able to. I know there are people who are massive fans of attacks like this, these like tool drop style attacks, like with Trubbish. Trubbish, was not super strong. I mean, okay, this card saw a lot of competitive play because it evolved into Garbodor, which is one of the I think one of the historically best all-time evolution lines because it just a ton of great Garbodors, but as an attacker, it's not particularly good. I don't know if anyone has played it in any of these tournaments as like a substantial main attacker, but regardless, it's cool. And yeah, I'm excited to see this attack come back to the game. Or I mean, it's still in the game, but maybe it'll be good again. Probably not. But I figured it is worth talking about because it is fun. Then we have the Arven's Pokemon. The Arven's Pokemon are actually interesting. We have Arven's. I said they were like bad, and at first I thought they were completely terrible, and I saw them, can be completely honest. But now that I've thought about them a little, I think they're okay. You have Arven's Mabosstiff EX, which is the main attacker. You have 2 attacks here. The second one's 210 for 3 colorless, and it's on a stage 1. EX as well. It has 270 HP. Cannot use reversal energy. Cannot use Neo Upper energy. So cannot use double turbo energy. No other way to get extra energies on. Again, we might see more Arven's Pokemon. I think we might. I think there's a very solid chance we will. I hope we see more Misties. That's the one I hope we see the most immediately because Misty like doesn't really work unless you have literally just some other random Pokemon. Arven does have have this Mabosstiff EX, which is an EX as well. The Misty deck does not have any EXs, but we have this Pokemon which can do 150 for 1 colorless, only if it has no damage counters on it. 150 for 1 is like not that good. It's okay. I mean, we were talking about Garchomp, which is 100 for 1. And I was like, this is okay with some damage buffs. But that's different. It's really tanky. This is not that tanky. It has 270. It's probably getting one-shotted. However, if you're not, then you have the item card Arven Sandwich Heal. This is like kind of a potion buff, but anyways, it's heal 30 from your active. But if it's an Arven's Pokemon, well, in a random deck, it's worse than potions, so it's pretty similar. But anyways, heal 30 from your active. If that Pokemon is an Arven's Pokemon, heal 100 instead. So you can heal 100 from Arven's Mabosstiff EX if it's in the active. The idea is to tank here, and then you can recover these with Arven's Greedent, which says on play when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, which has to be Arven Skwovet, cannot be the regular Skwovet, which isn't even like super good post rotation, I don't think, but it'll see some play. But regardless, you may put 2 Arven Sandwich cards from your discard pile into your hand to then just heal up an extra 200 damage, which is a bunch. Ultimately, this Pokemon has not that much tank, right? That's just an issue. You could do Survival Brace. Survival Brace is an ace spec that's seen some play in Lugia, I guess a little bit of playing Control. I've never found it useful. I messed with it a little bit. I found it pretty bad, pretty consistently. It just gets like broken, as in like your opponent just does some damage. Then if they do like like a Dust Storm or something, then this doesn't do anything. So, or I mean, it doesn't work. So at that point, then you need to keep your Arven's Mabosstiff alive a while and like tank a bunch. But I think it is possible. I think the better option might be Hero's Cape, but then you need like 4 Arven Sandwiches like every turn. Yeah, because you need to heal off all the damage as well. So you could do Monkey Dory as well. If you had Hero's Cape and you're taking like, I mean, you're not hopefully taking 360 damage, but then you could triple sandwich plus double Monkey Dory and then like heal off all the damage and be doing more damage. This seems pretty bad, to be honest, as I'm like saying it out loud. I think there's some potential here. I don't think this is completely, I mean, I think it's bad. I don't think it's unplayably bad at like a moderate level. I certainly don't expect this to be like a competitive level deck though. The last card we have here is Zeraora from Heatwave Arena again. Oh yes, part of Destined Rivals. That is the set internationally, and it has 100 HP. It does have one retreat, some have free retreat, and this one doesn't. There are some very mediocre Zeraoras with free retreat that has seen a bunch of competitive play because they have free retreat. But anyways, it does 20 for one colorless. It does, for 3 lightning, discard all energy from this Pokemon. It does 210 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon EX. This does have the problem, which I've talked about a bunch of, there are lots of Pokemon EX in the game that are very good. Let's take a quick look at them. We'll look post-rotation. Yeah, so we see our Caludon EX, you're not one-shotting that. We see Charizard EX, which you're not one-shotting, Pidgeot EX, which you're not one-shotting, Dragapult EX, which you're not one-shotting. Then we come to Spathra, you're not one-shotting, Gardevoir, you're not one-shotting, Golden, so you're not really one-shotting most of these. One big Pokemon that has 210 HP that's an EX is TLMS Agapon EX, but it's a Terra Pokemon, so you can't snipe it, and you can't snipe Dragapult or Charizard or Espathra either. I don't know if there's any others that I said that were Terra, but one of the main targets is not snipeable, or a lot of them are. The main uses of this are Pheasantipti EX and Squawkabilly EX, and I think this is really good there. What would you play this in? Miraidon's like just not very good post-rotation. I don't think it's very good pre-rotation, and it's losing some pieces, so it's just kind of falling apart because it's just not super strong. It's losing it like, Raikou V, Raichu V, Forest Seal Stone, and Raiden Kunoja, and a good chunk of cards, but it's a deck that is not in a great spot, and this Zeraora would slot decently into the deck, I think. Losing on the energy is kind of awkward. Someone in the comments of this, I think, said in Slowking, which is a really interesting deck, having a bunch of different attacking options. So you have Kyurem, which is a spread-based option, but it's more so targeting Pokemon like Charmanders and Dragapults or Drakelokes or whatever. This is obviously not targeting those because it can't, and you're trying to take this big knockout on the bench, and this is kind of a different way of taking a big one-shot instead of like Conkeldurr, Regigigas, or Annihilate, which are interesting in their different ways. Also, there is no Manaphy post-rotation. As I said, the Terra Pokemon have that special like Terra effect thing where they can't take the bench damage, but this is still going to go after some Pokemon. I don't really know the best use case of it. I don't think there's a great one. Slowking's not, in my opinion, that good. I'd say it's around like top, like fringe top 10, maybe top 15, somewhere in that range. I think it's okay. I think it's like if you brought this to a tournament post-rotation, that's nothing crazy. I mean, I keep saying like bring it to a tournament. That doesn't like have a specific meaning, as there's like big tournaments and small tournaments and relatively casual tournaments that aren't, as competitive. But it's like fine. I mean, in these City League tournaments, it's doing all right. It's not doing amazing. It's doing okay. But I think Zeraora is an okay card. Again, most of these cards aren't super impressive, these new reveals, to be honest, but they're not bad either. I think Pokemon's been doing a really good job of printing solid cards for around the past year and a half now or so. But I'm really excited to see what they're going to do going forwards and see what happens with the trainers Pokemon. But tell me down below in the comments which Pokemon from this new set of reveals you're most excited for and most disappointed by and all that good stuff. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.